Maybe Dad's right. You need to be more of a man. That is what my girlfriend Emily said to me last night when I told her I couldn't handle her dead boyfriend's father constantly tearing me down. I am still shaking as I type this because I thought she loved me. What happened next made me realize I have been living as a ghost in my own relationship for 2 years. Okay, so this is going to sound insane, but I need to get this out because it is eating me alive. I am Jason, 28, work as an accountant at a small financial firm here in Texas. My girlfriend Emily is 27. She is a nurse at the local hospital, and she was everything to me. My buddy Mike keeps telling me I should stand up for myself. But honestly, until last night I thought I was just being understanding. Here is the thing though. Emily had this boyfriend before me, Ryan, who died in a car accident 4 years ago. They were together for 3 years before that happened. Now, I know what you are thinking, and I thought I was being understanding about it. People grieve differently, right? I mean, losing someone you love that young, that suddenly, I get it. But Emily still visits Ryan's parents every single week. She calls them mom and dad. She spends holidays with them. And look, I tried to be supportive. I really did. When she told me she wanted me to meet them 6 months into our relationship, I said sure. I wanted to be part of her life, all of it. That is when I met Frank Thompson, Ryan's dad. This guy owns a garage, works with his hands, probably hasn't worn anything but coveralls and flannel shirts his entire life. And from the moment I walked into that place, from the very first handshake, I could tell he thought I was less than. Last night was the breaking point. We had gone over for dinner, like we do every Sunday. Linda, Ryan's mom, she makes this big family meal, and Emily helps in the kitchen while I sit there trying to make conversation with Frank. Which, let me tell you, is like trying to have a chat with a brick wall that occasionally insults you. Frank starts going off about some engine he is rebuilding. Classic car, 1970. Something Camaro. And he is talking about Ryan. About how Ryan could take apart an engine and put it back together blindfolded. How Ryan had these hands that just knew what to do. How Ryan was a real man's man. Then he looks at me, and I swear there is this smirk on his face. And he goes, Ryan could rebuild an engine with his bare hands. What can you do? Balance a checkbook. And Emily just sat there. Didn't say a word. Didn't even look uncomfortable. This wasn't the first time. Frank has been taking shots at me since day one. My job, my appearance, the way I talk. The fact that I drive a sedan instead of a truck. He calls my work pencil pushing. He has made jokes about my soft hands. He has asked Emily, right in front of me, if I even know how to change a tire. And every single time, Emily's response is the same. Just ignore him. He is grieving. He doesn't mean anything by it. He is still adjusting. Adjusting. It has been 2 years. So last night, driving home, I finally said something. I told Emily I couldn't keep doing this, that her dead boyfriend's father was treating me like I was some kind of joke, and she was letting it happen, that it was affecting my self-esteem, affecting our relationship, affecting everything. But she said I was being too sensitive. That Frank is just old-fashioned, and I shouldn't take it personally. That I knew what I was getting into when we started dating. And then she said the thing that has been playing on repeat in my head for 12 hours straight. Maybe Dad's right. Maybe you need to be more of a man. I actually felt the blood drain from my face. My own girlfriend. The woman I have been with for 2 years. The woman I was planning to propose to. She basically just told me I am not man enough. She agreed with Frank Thompson. I have been competing with a dead man for 2 years. And I have been losing. When we got back to her apartment, I told her I needed some time to think. She got angry then. Said I was being dramatic. Said I was making this about me when Frank is still dealing with losing his son. But here is the thing. Ryan's been gone for 4 years. 4 years. And I have been getting beaten down by his ghost every single Sunday for 2 years. How do you compete with a dead saint? How do you measure up to someone who has been frozen in time as this perfect example of manhood? And more importantly, should I even have to? Update 1. So I went back to Emily's apartment yesterday. She had been texting me non-stop since our fight, asking where I was, saying we needed to talk, that I was overreacting. But for the first time in our entire relationship, I wasn't rushing to fix things. I wasn't jumping to make her feel better. I just needed my stuff. She wasn't home when I got there. I used my key, which felt weird because part of me wondered if I even had the right to anymore. And I walked into that apartment like I was seeing it for the first time. Ryan's picture is everywhere. The pictures seem to have multiplied recently, maybe around Ryan's birthday last month. There is one on her nightstand, right next to where I sleep when I stay over. There is one on her kitchen counter. There is one on her bookshelf, on her desk, on her coffee table. I counted them. Guys, 17 pictures of Ryan scattered throughout a one-bedroom apartment. But it gets worse. I went to her closet to grab the shirt I had left there last week, and hanging right there, front and center, is Ryan's Letterman jacket from high school. This thing is 9 years old, and it is hanging in her closet like she is preserving it for a museum. On her dresser, next to her perfume and jewelry, there is a bottle of cologne. Ryan's cologne, still half full. Still sitting there like he is coming back to use it. I sat down on her bed feeling dizzy, and that is when I saw the corner of something sticking out from underneath. I pulled it out, and it was this wooden box, maybe the size of a shoebox. And inside was their entire relationship. Love letters he had written her, movie ticket stubs from their dates, a pressed flower from some bouquet he had given her, photos of them together, including some that were, well, let's just say they were private moments. And at the very bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was a ring. Not an engagement ring, but this promise ring he had given her when they were in high school. I am sitting there holding this ring, this symbol of a promise made by a dead man, and I realized something that made me feel sick. This box was under the bed I sometimes sleep in, right underneath where I lay my head. Emily had created this shrine to her perfect dead boyfriend. I have been sleeping on top of a museum of their relationship for 2 years. That is when Emily came home. She walked into the bedroom and saw me sitting there with the box, and the look on her face. It wasn't guilt or embarrassment. It was annoyance, like I had gone through her private things and had no right to be upset about what I found. She said it wasn't what it looked like, that those were just memories, that everyone keeps mementos from past relationships. But I asked her to show me one thing, just one single item that was a memento from any relationship before Ryan. She couldn't. Then I asked her about the pictures. 17 pictures. Emily. She said I was being ridiculous, that they were just photos. But I made her look around her own apartment, really look. And I asked her to find one picture of us together that was displayed anywhere other than hidden away in her phone. She couldn't. We have been together for 2 years, and there is not a single photo of us visible in her living space. But Ryan, who has been dead for 4 years, has 17. I started putting pieces together that I had been too blind to see before. Emily started dating me exactly 2 years after Ryan died. Exactly 2 years to the day. Same month, same week, almost the same circumstances. Our mutual friend Anna had introduced us at this barbecue, and I remember Emily mentioning that it was the first time she had felt ready to date again. The timing wasn't a coincidence. I wasn't a choice. I was a milestone in her grieving process. And Frank's behavior suddenly that made sense too. Every Sunday dinner, every time he would make one of his little comments about Ryan being a real man, Emily would just smile. Sometimes she'd even laugh. I thought she was trying to keep the peace. But now I realize she was agreeing with him. She thinks I am less than Ryan too. She has just been more polite about it. When I tried to explain this to Emily, when I told her how all of this made me feel, she said I was being insecure, that I was threatened by a dead person, that I needed to understand that Ryan would always be part of her life, and if I loved her, I would accept that. There is a difference between someone being part of your past and someone still being the main character of your present. Ryan isn't part of Emily's life. Ryan is Emily's life, and I am just borrowing space in it. I left the box on her bed and walked out. She followed me, asking where I was going, saying we needed to work this out. But for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't interested in working anything out. I wasn't interested in being understanding, or patient, or accommodating. I was done being the consolation prize in my own relationship. Emily's been calling and texting saying I am being unfair, that I am abandoning her when she needs me most. But I keep thinking about something one of you wrote in the comments. You said that love isn't about competing for someone's attention. Love is about being chosen. And Emily never chose me. She just settled for me when her first choice became unavailable. I am staying at my buddy Mike's place for now, trying to figure out what comes next. But for the first time in 2 years, I am not anxious about making Emily happy. I am not worried about measuring up to a dead man's memory. I am just sad that it took me this long to realize I deserved better. Update 2: I confronted Emily yesterday, and guys, it was so much worse than I imagined. She didn't just confirm everything I suspected. She said things that made me realize this whole relationship was built on a lie. But here is the thing that is different about this update. I am not the broken man I was a month ago. Let me back up. After my last post, I spent 3 weeks just existing, working, staying at Mike's place, trying to process everything. Emily kept reaching out, but I wasn't ready to talk. I needed to figure out who I was when I wasn't constantly trying to measure up to someone else's standards. And something interesting happened during those 3 weeks. I started remembering who I used to be before I met Emily, before Frank Thompson made me feel like being an accountant was somehow shameful. Before I started questioning whether I was man enough just because I solved problems with my brain instead of my hands. I got a promotion at work. My boss told me I had been doing exceptional analysis on some difficult accounts, and that the clients specifically asked for me because they trust my judgment. That felt good, really good. For the first time in months, I felt competent at something. I also started going to the gym with Mike, not because I was trying to become more masculine or whatever Frank Thompson thinks that means, but because it felt good to do something physical after sitting at a desk all day. And you know what I realized? I am actually pretty strong. I might not be able to rebuild an engine, but I can deadlift twice my body weight now. So yesterday, I finally agreed to meet Emily for coffee. Neutral ground, public place. I wasn't going there to fight or to get back together. I just wanted answers to questions that had been eating at me. She looked surprised when she saw me. I guess 3 weeks of not being stressed out constantly had changed my appearance. I felt more solid, I guess, more present in my own body. Emily immediately started apologizing, saying she had been thinking about everything I said, that she realized she hadn't been fair to me. But then she said something that told me she still didn't get it. She said, "Through therapy, I am starting to realize I wasn't fair to you. You are different from Ryan, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. You are more stable, more reliable." She said it like she was giving me a compliment. But all I heard was her confirming that she saw me as the boring, safe option compared to her exciting dead boyfriend. So I asked her directly. I said, "Emily, do you love me the way you loved Ryan?" And she couldn't answer. She just sat there looking uncomfortable, and finally said, "That is not a fair question. Ryan and I had a different kind of relationship. We were younger, more passionate. What you and I have is more mature, more mature." Like that was supposed to make me feel better. Then I asked her about Frank, about all those Sunday dinners where he had tear me down and she had just sit there. I asked her if she agreed with his assessment of me. And Emily actually said that Frank wasn't entirely wrong. She said that modern men have gotten too soft, too comfortable, and that maybe it would be good for me to learn some practical skills. She said I should take it as constructive criticism. Constructive criticism from a man who has been using me as an emotional punching bag for 2 years. But then she said the thing that really opened my eyes. She said she had been hoping that spending time with Frank would help me develop some of Ryan's better qualities, that maybe I would pick up some of his confidence, his hands-on approach to problems. I just stared at her. I said, "So you have been taking me to your dead boyfriend's father hoping he could turn me into your dead boyfriend?" She got defensive, said that wasn't what she meant, but I could see in her face that it was exactly what she meant. Emily had been dating me for 2 years, hoping I would transform into someone else, someone who was already dead. That is when I realized something. And I told her this as calmly as I could. I said, "Emily, you don't want a boyfriend, you want a resurrection." She started crying then, saying I was being cruel, that she did love me, that she just wanted me to be the best version of myself. But I asked her whose version of my best self she was talking about. Mine, or Frank Thompson's. She couldn't answer that either. Here is the thing that really got to me, though. During this whole conversation, Emily kept saying things like, "You are not usually this direct," or "I have never seen you this assertive," or "You are being so different today." And I realized she was right. I was being different. I was being myself, the person I was before I started shrinking myself down to fit into the shadow of her dead boyfriend. Emily noticed the change, but instead of liking it, She seemed almost threatened by it, like she was more comfortable with the insecure, diminished version of me. The version that wouldn't challenge her or ask hard questions. I told her I deserved to be with someone who chose me, not someone who settled for me while wishing I was someone else. She said she could change, that we could work through this, that she had talked to Frank about treating me better. But I realized I didn't want her to change for me. If she had to change to love me properly, then she wasn't the right person for me. I left her there in the coffee shop. She called after me, but I didn't turn around. A month ago, I was convinced there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't masculine enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy of being loved properly. I realized Frank Thompson was wrong about everything. Being a man isn't about working with your hands or driving a truck or being able to rebuild an engine. Being a man is about knowing your worth and not accepting less than you deserve. Emily taught me what I will not accept in a relationship. Frank taught me that other people's opinions of me are none of my business. And I taught myself that being gentle doesn't mean being weak, and being thoughtful doesn't mean being less than. Next week, I am moving into my own place. I have got some money saved up, and I am excited about creating a space that is actually mine. Final update Reddit. I did it. I faced Frank Thompson yesterday, and I want to tell you about the man I discovered I had always been underneath all that doubt. Because this isn't just about Emily anymore. This is about remembering who I am. I have been going to therapy, which has been incredible. My therapist helped me understand that what I experienced with Emily and Frank wasn't just relationship problems. It was emotional abuse, subtle, constant undermining designed to make me question my own worth, and recognizing that has been life-changing. I have also been on a few dates with a teacher named Laura who works at the elementary school near my office. We met at a bookstore 3 weeks ago, and when I told her I was an accountant, you know what she said? She said that was attractive because it showed I was good with details and reliable. She didn't say I needed to be more of anything. She said she liked who I already was. But yesterday I had to go back to that part of town where Emily lives, where the Thompsons live, because my bank has a branch over there and I needed to handle some paperwork in person. And as I was leaving, I saw Frank Thompson's garage. I sat in my car for about 10 minutes, just looking at that place. And I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't angry either. I was just curious. Curious about whether Frank was the same man who had spent 2 years trying to make me feel small, so I parked and walked in. Frank was there, working under the hood of that same Camaro he had been rebuilding forever. He looked up when he heard footsteps, and I could see the surprise on his face when he recognized me. He said, "Well, didn't expect to see you again," I said. I was in the neighborhood and thought I would stop by. I wanted to return something. I handed him the spare key to Emily's apartment that I had never given back. He looked confused, but he took it. Then I said something I had been practicing with my therapist. I said, "Frank, I want you to know that Ryan sounds like he was a good man, and I am sorry for your loss. But being a good man isn't about what kind of work you do or whether you can fix an engine. It is about how you treat people." Frank just stood there, grease on his hands, looking at me like he had never seen me before. I continued. I said, "For 2 years, you used me as a target for your grief and anger. You made jokes at my expense and tried to make me feel like less of a man because I work in an office instead of a garage. And Emily, she let it happen." Frank's face changed then. The usual smugness was gone, and he just looked tired, he said. "And this surprised me, Jason. I know I was hard on you, hard on me. Frank, you spent 2 years telling me I wasn't good enough to breathe the same air as your dead son. You turned Sunday dinners into weekly sessions of tearing down my self-worth. And then something happened. I never expected." Frank sat down on a work stool and looked at his hands. And he said, "I miss him so much. Every day I miss him so much I can barely stand it. And when Emily brought you around, you seemed like everything he wasn't. Soft, quiet, indoor work. And I guess I took that out on you." It was the first time Frank Thompson had ever shown me a glimpse of the human being underneath all that anger. I said, "Frank, your son being gone is a tragedy. But that doesn't give you the right to make someone else feel worthless. Grief isn't an excuse for cruelty." He nodded, and I could see his eyes getting watery. He said, "You are right. You are absolutely right." Then Linda came out from the back office. She would apparently heard our conversation, and she looked at me with this expression I had never seen before. "Shame, maybe, or regret," she said. "Jason, I owe you an apology too. I should have stopped him. I should have said something all those times. But I didn't want to make things worse." I told her I appreciated that, but that staying silent while someone is being mistreated is a choice too. We talked for about 20 minutes. Really talked. Maybe for the first time ever. Frank told me about Ryan, about the kind of person he really was. Not the saint version Emily had created in her head. He was a good kid, but he was just a kid. He wasn't perfect, wasn't some impossible standard of masculinity. He was just their son, and they missed him. I told them about my work, about what I actually do all day, about the families and small businesses I help with their finances, about how my job might not involve getting my hands dirty, but it involves helping people secure their futures. Frank actually seemed interested, asked some questions about business planning. It was like meeting him for the first time. As I was getting ready to leave, Frank said, "For what it is worth, I think Emily made a mistake letting you go." I said, "Frank, Emily didn't let me go. I chose to leave." "There is a difference." Just as I got to my car, Emily pulled up. She saw me talking to Frank and Linda, and she looked panicked. She got out of her car and rushed over. She said, "Jason, what are you doing here, Frank? What did you say to him?" Frank looked at her and said, "I apologized to him, like I should have done a long time ago." Emily looked back and forth between us, and I could see her trying to process what was happening. She said, "Jason, I have been trying to call you. I have been in therapy, working on things. I realize now how unfair I was to you." I said, "Emily, I am glad you are getting help. You should, but I am not interested in trying again," she said. "But we could be good together now. I understand what I did wrong, and I realized something in that moment." Emily was doing the same thing she had always done. She was trying to manage the situation, trying to fix the problem, so things could go back to the way they were. But she still didn't understand that the problem wasn't something that could be fixed with a few changes or some therapy sessions. I said, "Emily, the problem wasn't that you handled things badly. The problem was that you never actually wanted me. You wanted a placeholder until you figured out how to get Ryan back, and when that wasn't possible, you wanted to turn me into him." I told her about Laura, about how different it felt to be with someone who actually saw me and liked what they saw. Someone who didn't need me to be anyone other than who I already was. Emily started crying then, saying she did see me. She did love me. But I said, "Emily, love isn't about managing someone until they become tolerable. Love is about choosing someone because of who they are, not despite it." Frank and Linda watched this whole exchange, and I could see them understanding, maybe for the first time, what their behavior had contributed to. I said goodbye to all three of them and got in my car. As I was driving away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Emily standing there with Frank and Linda, and I felt peaceful. I am not angry at any of them anymore. Frank was a grieving father who channeled his pain into cruelty. Linda was a grieving mother who chose silence over confrontation. Emily was a woman who never learned how to love someone new instead of trying to resurrect someone old. But I am not responsible for fixing any of that. I am only responsible for knowing my own worth and protecting it.